Well, good morning, friends. This morning's class is on the Sankhitta Sutta, which is a nice teaching to a monk who is rather well along in his Dhamma practice and needs a little bit of fine-tuning by the Buddha. It's an interesting sutta, but we'll meditate first for 30 minutes. So find your relaxed meditative posture and gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body. Just get a feel for what that's like. And holding your back straight but not stiff, your ears aligned with your shoulders, your nose aligned with your navel. Holding yourself very loosely, very gently, very lovingly. Allow yourselves to settle into this room. Settle onto your seats, settle into your bodies, and settle into your minds. And take a moment to become aware of that sensation of breathing in your body. And while remaining mindful of your breath in your body, notice that thoughts are flowing. Conscious beings, thoughts should be flowing. The purpose of meditation is to not be distracted by your own thoughts. So when you find that you're caught up in your thinking again, simply acknowledge that and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. Relaxing your thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. And we'll meditate for 30 minutes, 5 minutes. Relaxing thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. 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 Persistent thought or feeling arises. Stay with it for a moment or two. Recognize it as impermanent and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. And we'll meditate for 5 more minutes. Take a moment to notice the quality of your mind. Be at peace with your mind. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Tuesday. So the Sankhitta Sutta to the Buddha, the teaching the Buddha was giving to a monk who had already developed a good foundation in the Buddha's teaching and was considering going off into seclusion to finish his development. And he wanted some advice from the Buddha. The Buddha did not advise this monk that what he was asking was not possible. And he also didn't suggest that he should incorporate additional practices. The reason why I say that is there's a lot of modern teachings are taught in a hierarchical fashion, meaning you start here, build up to more advanced teachings. The Buddha never had a beginning or an end to his teaching. He never taught anything that was advanced. Everything was incorporated into the Eightfold Path, a very simple and direct path. So this monk went to the Buddha one day and bowed to the Buddha as a sign of respect. He said, "Great teacher, it would be to my benefit if you could teach me your Dhamma in brief, that I may dwell in seclusion, mindful, joyful, and steadfast." Replied, "Monk, it is just in this way that some worthless men make this request, and having heard my Dhamma, do not go into seclusion." And in this way, he's using seclusion also in a metaphorical sense, meaning they do not take it to heart. They don't develop it within themselves. Continue to follow along with me without developing the Dhamma for themselves, meaning they might go to the Buddhist teachings, they might practice a little bit of meditation again, but they don't take it into seclusion. They don't incorporate it within themselves. The Buddha never held himself out as a savior, that if you just kind of acknowledge him, take him in as your savior, that you're good to go. He never presented himself like that or his Dhamma that way. My comments here. Even with the Buddha as their direct teacher, there were still some that would hope to develop release by simply following along, rather than develop the Dhamma directly. The monk asks again, "May the Tathagata," meaning the Buddha, "teach me his Dhamma in brief. It will be that I will develop understanding, unbinding, and peace." Then, monk, listen to my words. Through Shamatha-Vipassana meditation, develop concentration to be focused inward and well composed. No hurtful qualities of mind, once arisen, will remain to consume your mind if you have developed concentration. Establish metta, goodwill and loving kindness toward yourself and others. When you have established metta as a quality of your mind, concentration, develop metta until it is fully supported by equanimity. The Buddha's teaching develop goodwill and loving kindness, not just as a compassionate act, but as a complete quality of mind that is resting in peace because there's no disturbance created from wanting anything to be other than what it is. Maintaining metta, goodwill and loving kindness towards yourself and towards all other beings continuously. The Buddha continues, establish compassion towards yourself and others. When you have established compassion as a quality of your mind, rooted in concentration, develop compassion until it is fully supported by equanimity. When concentration is thus supported, then remain focused on your breath in your body, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside craving and clinging to the people, objects, and events of this world. So you remember, Tommy wasn't here, over the last weeks we've been talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and now the Buddha is taking this teaching to the monk back to that initial foundation. Him how important it is to maintain mindfulness of your breath, ardent and aware, always be mindful of it. When concentration is thus supported, focused on your feelings as they arise, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside craving and clinging to the people, objects, and events of the world. Again, going back to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. He's not saying that as an awakened or someone approaching that state, that you won't have feelings. He's simply reminding this monk, Sankhitta, to do not be distracted by feelings. Simply recognize that. He's taking it, this monk's teaching all the way back to that foundation in meditation. When concentration is thus supported, then remain focused on your thoughts as they arise, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside craving and clinging to the people, objects, and events of the world. When your concentration is thus developed by you, your mind resting in unending equanimity, wherever you go, whatever you encounter, you will remain comfortable and at peace. My words. The monk, having received the Buddha's words, with patient determination, took his leave to seclusion. In short order, he developed unbinding from all confused and deluded views. His mind cleared, and he realized the goal had been achieved. He then knew that, in quotes, the disciplined life has been lived, the task is now complete, there is no further attachments to the phenomenal world, which is exactly what the Buddha declared when he awakened. He became another arahant, an awakened, fully mature human being. The Buddha teaches that this monk, while in seclusion, he should continue to develop concentration and develop further the 4 foundations of mindfulness. As the monk's Dhamma practice develops, the Buddha instructs him to cultivate the 4 sublime qualities of mind, or the Brahma Viharas. So we talked about that, I think, Tuesday of last week, not on Saturday. The Brahma Viharas are true love, compassion, unselfish joy, and equanimity. These are mind states free of discrimination. In this manner, they are also referred to as the boundless states, as they are not limited by any partiality. These qualities of mind are effortlessly maintained in all situations. They are the results of a wholehearted Dhamma practice that has a recognition of views arisen from a lack of understanding and has achieved a profound measure of non-reaction. The reason why I wrote that, that's the end of the article, by the way. That last is a reminder that to be loving and compassionate, to have a mind that is resting in equanimity is not enough. The aspiration is not enough. Often it is taught that way, though, that all that we should strive to be is to be compassionate human beings. That's the vow of the Bodhisattva. If you truly want to be that way, and this was part of Thursday's talk too, if this is truly your aspiration to be a loving, compassionate person whose mind is resting in equanimity, you have to do more than just wish for it. You have to actually develop the Dhamma. And the Buddha is reminding Sankhitta. I remember Sankhitta's telling the Buddha, I'm now ready to go off by myself and complete my development of the Dhamma. And the Buddha is reminding Sankhitta of the basics. Even though you're off by yourself, basics. Remember the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Remember that even in seclusion, to strive for a compassionate quality of mind that is informed by the Eightfold Path. And the reason why the sutta is so important to all of us, whether we're going off and leaving the world behind completely, or we're just taking our seclusion twice a day in our meditation practice, to remember what that's about. It's there to continue to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness, to deepen our concentration so that off our cushions, we can hold in mind the entire Eightfold Path. And that's the end of the talk.
It seems like it would be really hard to develop that if there's no practice. Like if you're going off in seclusion, you don't have the practice of, well, the Eightfold Path. You're practicing that with other human beings a lot, you know, in terms of developing that compassion and developing that ability to have right speech, right action. It's by being in the world as opposed to being in seclusion.
Yes, what a great point, Debbie. And the Buddha is kind of reminding Sankhitta in that way that even though you're going off into the world, don't forget about these things that it's easy to lose track of, such as goodwill or loving kindness. Because since you're not interacting with people, it's easy to fool yourself that, oh, I'm the most loving and compassionate person. I haven't had an argument with anybody in 12 years. Well, you've been in a cave for 12 years. How can you? Well, but there's also a value. Now remember, Sankhitta is well advanced in his teaching too. He understands all of this. And the Buddha is just reminding him, you know, don't forget this when you go off into seclusion. And it was also accepted that once Sankhitta had realization, as he described, he would then be out into the world again. the Buddha's monks and nuns that were a part of the original Sangha, when they developed awakening, most every one of them, not everyone, but most every one of them was then tasked with going out into the world and teaching just what you understood. And every day they were out into the world on their alms rounds. It's one of the reasons why the Buddha never took on, the Buddha always had benefactors, I shouldn't say always, often had benefactors that wanted to set the Buddha up with, in one place and give you all the food you need and everything else. And he always refused that. He took it on special occasions, but he always refused it because he realized that, as he did as the prince in his father's kingdom, that could isolate himself from the world too. That it was important that every day all the monks and nuns got up and left their place of seclusion and went into the local town to get food and whatever else they might need, so that they maintain that interaction with the world. So it's so important. We can't do it in seclusion. Also points to the importance of being mindful of the Eightfold Path. We develop concentration on our cushions so that off our cushions we can go out in the world and live our lives framed by the Eightfold Path if we hope to awaken, if we hope to develop a life of equanimity. Such an important question. Thank you. Lorna.
The monk was unawakened when he went to his seclusion spot. Mm-hmm. And after getting the advice from the Buddha, presumably he went away and thought about loving kindness and what's the difference between thinking about loving kindness, being kind to others, and in a thinking sort of a way, and not in an anatta sort of way?
Not in a practical way.
I'm a loving kind person, which is referring anatta in the thinking. So how do you do the other? Think about it, but not include anatta in your thinking.
Yeah, what a great question too. Notice the Buddha doesn't need to, or anyone else for that matter, to think about compassion. Think about it. He talks about it as developing it as a quality of mind, a mind state that we are resting in. And that's developed through the Eightfold Path. So again, it's not, and the Buddha teaches that from his own experience. Remember, he always referred to himself as an unawakened bodhisattva, a human being who was filled with great compassion for other human beings, but lacking the wisdom of being able to hold that in mind as a quality of mind, rather than just a thought. Now, initially, the Eightfold Path will point us in that direction of thinking first. In other words, I have an unwholesome thought about another human being. And I recognize that I'm thinking in an unwholesome way, in a hurtful way. My first thought should be to incline my mind towards gentleness and compassion, but also to remember that if I'm to develop that as a quality of mind, I need to develop an entire Eightfold Path. So each factor of the Eightfold Path will inform in some way that ongoing quality of mind. View. If you have a fully developed right view, you understand in a profound way the nature of suffering, and that craving originates and clinging perpetuates suffering. And you see that in others. Somebody is acting aggressively towards you. In a quality of mind of peace and compassion because you understand where that person is coming from. You don't take it personally. But initially, it might be that you have to catch yourself from reacting towards that person. That's just the beginning of the practice. So there's a subtle difference between thinking of acting compassionately, then holding that as a quality of mind. As a quality of mind, there's no disturbance anymore. But again, it's part of developing it. So the Buddha is telling Sankhitta, because he knows he's not yet quite awakened, to be mindful of that even in seclusion, unwholesome, hurtful thoughts could still arise. For some reason, I'm thinking about Thomas Merton, the Christian monk who spent 12 years meditating out of society And when he came back, when he was finished with his meditation, he basically said meditation is useless unless you can take it down off the mountain and bring it into the marketplace, meaning you have to apply it into the world. What good is it to do anything that is only effective in seclusion? But again, that's what a lot of modern meditation is, just meditate. And you don't really have to develop any other kind of understanding. Meditation alone is enough. So 2 great questions. Tommy, do you have a great question this morning? Good. That's good to see you this morning, Tommy.
So the human condition would suppose that it's all based on interaction. All based. I mean, feelings, certainly. How did you put it? The untoward, the unpleasant thought, wanting to hurt someone.
Unwholesome thought.
You know, all of those things. I mean, that's what I deal with every day. You know, feelings, lack of feelings, am I getting, am I giving, all of that. And so, you know, meditation for me is just that, I shouldn't use that analogy, a very small aspect that I'm trying to grow towards betterment. But, you know, it's the conflict. It's the conflict all the time.
Yeah, another great question, comment. It is the conflict all the time. The Buddha described that in the First Noble Truth, that there is dukkha. And he described that as first an ongoing conflict within ourselves to want things to be different. Sickness, suffering, death. Sickness, aging, and death. Not getting what we want, getting what we don't want. Meaning being with people we'd rather not be with, that we find, upsetting in some way. And then he would conclude that by saying, in short, the 5 clinging aggregates are suffering or conflict. The 5 clinging aggregates are simply a description of the personal experience of a lack of understanding in the world. So the disturbance that arise, feelings, thoughts, often have to do with our interaction in the world. So meditation is to deepen concentration. Even while that stuff may be churning inside of us, and our meditation practice, to just be well concentrated on the breath, to not react to that in any way on our cushion. As our concentration deepens on our cushion, we're able to hold in mind the other factors of the Eightfold Path, beginning with right view, followed by right intention, the intention to recognize and abandon craving and clinging. Right after that, right after those first 2 factors, comes right speech, right action, and right livelihood, the moral or ethical or virtuous factors. And the only reason they're there is to remind us when our behavior is outside of those parameters, when it's unwholesome in some way. Why do we need a reminder of it? Well, for one thing, our minds are usually not well concentrated enough to recognize that. But what you pointed out is the foundational aspects of the Eightfold Path, to recognizing when in thought, word, and deed, I'm not integrated in the Eightfold Path. It takes a well-concentrated mind to do that. That's the primary reason for meditation.
Do you know any caves for rent?
What did he say?
Well, any caves for rent? It's a great question. The Dhamma itself provides a personal cave, right effort. Twice a day, as consistently as we can, but I'll say twice a day, every day is what we should strive for. That's what right effort says. We engage in a meditation practice. A meditation practice is often thought of as a refuge, and it is. It's our refuge from the world twice a day. It's our point of seclusion, to withdraw from the world, deepen concentration, so that we can get up off our cushion and interact in the world in a way that is loving and calm and at peace. Pardon me?
What a great question.
It is, and it really is the essence of it. That's we don't meditate to solve our problems of competitiveness. We meditate so we can deepen our concentration, so that we can practice the Eightfold Path as an awakened, fully mature human being. And it is. It's the Buddha could nearly has accurately said that in the First Noble Truth that there's dukkha as there is conflict, because that's what he's describing as conflict.
Well, and that goes along with the fact that the neurobiology piece of how when you're doing that practice and developing that concentration, you're growing the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, so that you are less reactive and more able to follow through with those, with the Eightfold Path, and be as a less reactive human being, partly because there's even a science piece of it.
Yes, we become hardwired towards peace, don't we? And they're able to prove that now, something the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago. And then, thank you so much for saying that. What you just said shows that it's not just thinking about acting a certain way. When we develop the practice the way it's intended, we organically change the way that we think. It then becomes a verifiable quality of mind. Idea, I should be more compassionate. Why am I so frustrated with the world? Why am I so full of fear? Why am I so full resentful? Why am I always rushing? Why am I never satisfied? The Buddha recognized this 2,600 years ago. No matter what you do, if you don't change organically what you hold in mind, you'll never be free of fear. You'll always be distracted by the quality of your mind. But if you do this, you can organically change the way you live in the world.
The frustration for me comes with, like I've talked about this before, like we sat here a half hour and maybe I got, seconds here and there, seconds here. Every 5 minutes when you do the call out, it's like, well, maybe a few 10 seconds of that 5 minutes, or, it's like, I just feel like it's so slow in coming. I mean, there definitely, I sometimes see that I'm more aware, but still it's so slow in coming because my concentration is so difficult. Okay.
Yeah, and that can very easily lead to frustration, especially when you are practice or maybe yourself a little too harshly, instead of just realizing that part of right effort is, while I'm on my meditation cushion, to let go of all those judgments and be fortunate for those 10 seconds, that you were able to develop that. And it's hard. It's hard. I'm not saying it like, geez, why don't you just do this? Because I know how difficult it is.
Well, it's that addictive thing of you. I just want to get it right. I want to get it right now.
Yeah, and the way to get it right is to realizing that you do have it right now. In meditation, all that we do is recognize when we're caught up in our thoughts and come back to the sensation of breathing. Notice there's no teaching to, I realize that I got caught up in my thoughts. Let me give myself 2 or 3 lashes.
That's Catholic.
Yeah, it's also in. I'm not going to mention it on air. It's also a particular Buddhist practice uses a stick to remind. It's not done in any kind of meanness, but in essence, that's what we do when we start becoming, I'm caught up in my thoughts again.
Yeah.
Just come back to the sensation of breathing. That when I know you've heard me say, I'm not saying this, you've heard me say this, that's part of being gentle with ourselves too, and not judging ourselves. If it wasn't for the need to deepen concentration, just concentrate. And he would say, here's 6 things to hold in mind, to think about. Think about being compassionate. Think about being loving. Think about being peaceful. But he didn't say that. He taught it because he recognized that we can't do that. He recognized it because he went through that. In the Nagara Sutta, my favorite sutta, the Buddha describes his awakening. And he talks about getting caught in that feedback loop of self-referential views around a consciousness that's rooted in ignorance. And there's no way of getting out of that until he realized an Eightfold Path. He recognized that that was the common human problem, this feedback loop of conditioned thinking. How can I teach a way for people to get around that? How do you know you're deluded? You need a way of looking at it, the Eightfold Path. So in meditation, as I realized that meditation, I was only mindful of my breath for 3 minutes. Be appreciative of that. I was able to do that. I have a mind. And if we can do it for 10 seconds or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we can do it off and on for 30 minutes. Somebody asked me a while ago, it was the first time I was ever asked in years, this is probably about 6 months ago, a online student. He said, so how long can you be mindful of your breath? And I couldn't answer. I had to think about it because I've never thought about it. And not that I'm so wonderful that I was above it all. I just never thought. I never set it up as a goal that I should be mindful of my breath for X number of minutes, however long I'm meditating. And after I thought about it a little bit, it was an email. I was given the opportunity to think. I got back to him and said, honestly, I don't know. I don't want to think about it. But I would bet it's no more than 4 or 5 minutes at a time, and it might not even be that. But what I can tell you after many years of meditation is my mind is much more well concentrated than it ever was. I mean, I can remember what my mind was like 30 some odd years ago. I remember what it was like 15 years ago. My concentration has increased. And it's because of my increasing concentration that I'm able to more fully incorporate the Eightfold Path as a framework for my life. And that's really the important thing. So that's 4 great questions. Is there another one? Oh, here we go.
Well, I tell you what helps me. I'm just saying this maybe if I could see this is when you say that we're wishing life to be different than what it is. Another way of looking at it is really that life and everything to do with life is right, is correct, is how it should be. And it's our view that's wrong, that's wishing it to be different.
Wrong views, yeah.
So that includes us. I am not a perfect person. accepting I am right for me. Because I'm right for me, like everything else in the world is right. That includes me. And that includes, sometimes I fit into society quite comfortably, and sometimes I don't, and sometimes I wish that, but I'm right for me.
Sometimes I can concentrate, sometimes I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if that's how you are, that's how you are. It's just like,
That's just a beautiful way to say it.
I'm so tall, I'm so short, I'm so this, my arms are like this, and it's me. It's the way I am, and my mind and my abilities and everything else just go along with this, and this is right. It's right. It was born this way. It's right.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that's the essence of mindfulness as it's taught in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. When we develop mindfulness framed by the Eightfold Path, we learn the difference between acceptance and approval. So however we are in this moment with yourself, that's exactly what I mean, what you're saying, is to accept yourself completely as you are in this present moment, without the need for you to be any different in your own mind. But that's a thought that's free of clinging, meaning I'm who I am in this moment, but I'm not enamored with who I am in this moment. Because I recognize that who I am in this moment, short of being an awakened, fully mature human being, is in a process of becoming. And so if I find that in this moment my mind is agitated in some way, the 4 foundations of mindfulness again, feelings and thoughts, that the only thing that I can do, it's not the only thing, the most skillful thing that I can do is to hold in mind the principles of the Eightfold Path, and so incline my mind towards becoming awakened, being rooted in ignorance and becoming further ignorant. So there's one more step to seeing myself as, accepting myself as I am in this moment. That's the foundation. And then recognize that the next moment, skillful to frame the next moment within the framework of the Eightfold Path. Because if it was just enough to simply accept who I am, again, the Buddha would just say,
just continue on.
Yeah, and which is really, and that's just another method of distraction, which is proliferated. Again, I got to always qualify this. I'm glad that everybody does whatever they want, and they should continue that. But that distraction of act a certain way and I'm okay, or just simply accept myself as I am without any proper framework, of modern New Age thought too. And it's just, then that just becomes another distraction. And we can easily fall into this analytical way of, why am I acting this way? Underlying that, I'm okay. Rather than use that simple and direct framework that the Buddha taught, an eightfold path. It's surprising to me, even today, how much resistance there is to this simple thing called an eightfold path. As it gets right to the heart of the matter. And most of us, nobody in this room, and most everyone that comes to these classes and online, they've embraced the Eightfold Path. They don't run away from it. They don't try to ignore it in some way. And so they're able to develop. People don't. The great majority of Buddhist practitioners, even if they know what the Eightfold Path is, never incorporate it into their life. In fact, it's almost like, well, okay, I heard that. Now let me act compassionate. And then they wonder why do I get so frustrated with life? Why am I so angry? Why am I so full of fear? Because you haven't developed this little thing called the Eightfold Path. It's how we know our own growth. So another great question. Any other great questions? No? Any other comments about today's teachings? All right, we'll finish with metta then. It was a great class. All right, find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouth. Take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body. And let that mindfulness of your breath cease any distracting thoughts to the past or to the future that may have arisen from our talk today. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. Peace.